GamingBolt presents 14 biggest video game rumors that rocked the gaming world. Every once in a while, something happens in our industry, something big, something major, something that makes people stop whatever they're doing and pay attention to what they're seeing unravel. Rumors about cancellations, reports about new consoles, fallouts between developers and their employees, fake teasers, leaked announcements. It can be any number of things that make the entire industry stop. Here in this feature, we're going to talk about 14 such instances, 14 times where something happened in the industry, a report or a rumor that made the entire industry stop and take notice, if only for a fleeting moment. Just to make it clear, it doesn't matter if these reports or rumors went on to be proven true or false. That's not the criteria for this feature. We're simply talking about how momentous they were and how much traction they gathered with everyone. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Nintendo NX fake controller. Sometime back in 2016, when the Nintendo Switch had not even been officially announced yet and was only known as the NX, there were reports of leaked images that showed the controller for the upcoming system, and it wasn't at all what people were hoping for or expecting. It was essentially an oval tablet with only 2 analog sticks, one at each side, and no other buttons. Ridiculous online forensics that went into analyzing the photos and deciphering tiny little details such as what studio it was in and who had inadvertently leaked the images, until it finally turned out that it had been mocked up by a random person with a 3D printer. He'd had no idea that some images could cause so many people to lose their minds. So yeah, that was a fun week. Mass Effect Andromeda's messed up development. Mass Effect Andromeda was obviously far from what fans of the series were expecting it to be. And while it's by no means a bad game, it is the negative reception it received and the relatively poor sales figures it managed to muster that ultimately led to EA putting the Mass Effect series on ice, which is another way of saying that the series is, at least for the foreseeable future, dead. Reports recently emerged on Kotaku that suggested that Andromeda's development had gone terribly, facing everything from struggles between people within studios, people leaving, there being a general lack of direction, to the team being overly ambitious, some shoddy outsourcing, and constant delays. It's disappointing, really, and it's truly shocking to see BioWare and EA mishandling such a major franchise so spectacularly. David Hayter's involvement with Metal Gear Solid 5. David Hayter was for years the voice of both Solid Snake and Big Boss, the 2 main protagonists of the long and winding Metal Gear series. The raspy, rough sound of the man was instantly recognizable, and he gave several memorable performances as the 2 characters over the course of a number of games. So of course, it came as a shock to everyone when Hideo Kojima confirmed that the Phantom Pain's Big Boss would be voiced not by David Hayter, but by Kiefer Sutherland. People didn't take this news well, and some outright refused to believe Kojima, believing that it was just another one of his famous trolls. Some people even claimed to have found audio files in Ground Zeroes that had Hayter's voice, but of course that turned out to be nothing, and it turned out that Kojima wasn't trolling us after all. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII has been a game that everyone wanted to remake for a long time. So, obviously, when it was officially confirmed in 2015, after years of anticipation and speculation, people rightly lost their minds. Of course, we're still waiting for that remake, but this is not the only time the video games industry had been talking so fiercely about a Final Fantasy VII remake. Back in 2005, a tech demo was shown for Final Fantasy VII Remake running on the PS3, and everyone started speculating that maybe the game was coming over to what was then the latest Sony system. It would be 10 more years before the game was officially confirmed, but people lost their minds over it all the same. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, been drowned. Chances are, if you're a fan of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, you've heard of the been drowned urban legend. It was about what was allegedly a haunted N64 cartridge of Majora's Mask that a player supposedly purchased from a shady-looking person. Weird glitches started surfacing in the cartridge, and the story was backed by video evidence as well. Majora's Mask is a pretty bizarre game in and of itself, and that made the story so much more intriguing. A lot of people took notice, and the story gained plenty of traction. Of course, ultimately it died down, and of course there really wasn't a haunted cartridge, but it was fun to see everyone following the progress of this story. Fallout 4 fake teaser website. Back in 2013, everyone was losing their minds because apparently an official Fallout 4 announcement was looming on the horizon. People had come across a website, thesurvivor2299.com, which was apparently teasing an imminent announcement by Bethesda. It looked legit, it looked authentic, and it seemed like it was only a matter of when and not if. As the industry waited for Bethesda to make the official announcement, it turned out that the teaser website was actually fake, and Fallout 4 was still no closer to actually being launched. The game was, of course, both officially confirmed and launched in 2015. Team Bondi owing $1 million to its employees. Team Bondi rose to fame thanks to LA Noire, but no one could have guessed that that would be their first and also the last game that they would ever make. Once the game had been launched and the studio had been shut down and was being liquidated, it came to light that Team Bondi also owed its employees a total of $1 million. The money for this was raised when the liquidation of the studio was completed. It's sad that the legacy would only amount to just one game, and the studio had to phase out of existence the very year that the first game was being released. And it was definitely something that had a whole lot of people talking about when it was happening. Cancelled Conker game. Back in early 2015, for a few days, everyone on the internet was talking about Rare's Conker, and about how the series might be making a comeback. You see, there had been a verified post on Reddit that had apparently leaked some details about Microsoft, who had been going around talking to developers about bringing Conker back. Allegedly, they had spoken with Insomniac as well, but due to time constraints, they had refused the offer. Microsoft was apparently desperate to push out a Conker game, but no one else was apparently wanting to do anything with it. Everyone was talking about it, it seemed, so it was pretty funny when it was revealed in a Kotaku report later that the entire thing had been conjured up by a student as a case study for a media studies class. Kojima leaving Konami. There was just so much controversy surrounding everything that even came within an inch of the Phantom Pain back in 2015. From David Hayter to the fabled Episode 51 to Hideo Kojima's fallout with Konami and their subsequent split, there were just so many developments in such a short period of time. Hideo Kojima had for a long time been the face of Konami, one of the company's most important and influential figures. But after repeated reports of trouble, Hideo Kojima split from Konami in a rather ugly fashion. The way he was treated by Konami was met with major outcry from the gaming community, while new facts kept coming to light about why the two parties had fallen apart. It really did have everyone talking about it. Xbox One, 6 teraflops. This hasn't been the best generation for Microsoft, so when the rumor broke that they might be looking at reversing course entirely by putting out a new, upgraded Xbox One, we all sat up and took notice. After all, this seemed to be an exciting new move, but then more details began to slowly trickle out. The new system would apparently have 6 teraflops of GPU power, which is an absurd upgrade over the existing Xbox One. Such a console would be incredibly powerful and capable. Microsoft would go on to reveal Xbox Scorpio, which would finally become known as the Xbox One X, and true to expectation, it would end up being every bit as accomplished piece of hardware as the rumor suggested it would be. The entire drama of Half-Life 3. At this point, we are probably not getting Half-Life 3 anytime soon, but for the longest time, we expected the game to be announced and blow our collective minds like the other games in the series. This was aided by repeated leaks, mostly fake, made by guys with a fair bit of time and/or talent on their hands, making convincing fakes. Unfortunately, all of them were just that, fakes, and we are still waiting for Half-Life 3 to this day. The Last Guardian cancellation rumor. Last year, The Last Guardian finally released, but it was a long time coming. You see, the game was originally announced all the way back in 2009 and was delayed multiple times subsequently. In fact, it even disappeared from public eye entirely for years, leading to rumors that it might be cancelled. Reports of troubled development and of director Ueda began to leak. Many assumed the worst, that the game would never even launch, and it would be silently swept under the rug. The reports did turn out to be true in the end, but the conclusions did not. Thankfully, The Last Guardian launched last year, and it more or less ended up living up to its immense hype. The POLYBIUS experiment. Allegedly, back in the 1980s, in the era of video game arcades, when Pac-Man and Donkey Kong ruled the roost, there was another arcade game called POLYBIUS that was apparently a part of a mass government experiment, with the game being installed by the government to determine and analyze data from the players. The game itself was supposed to induce psycho-addictive effects in the players, and of course, for some conspiracy theorist nuts, it was a way for the government to control us all. It was a typical 1980s conspiracy theory. The game's existence has never been proven, and if POLYBIUS ever was a thing, it was probably a small, niche arcade game in low circulation, and certainly not something the government used to analyze and control us. Or maybe that's just what they want us to think. Herobrine in Minecraft. Minecraft is a game of infinity, limited only by the player's imaginations, and player imaginations can often run wild. Take Herobrine, apparently an entity that shows up in single-player games, shaving leaves off of trees and creating random constructions, and leaving players notes telling them that they are living in a fantasy world to escape the torture that is being inflicted on them in the real world, and that they need to face the truth and wake up. Which is slightly meta, a fair bit creepy, and for once, we're glad this rumor is fake. The creepy entity sadly does not exist in Minecraft in any form. No references to it exist in the code. And while players will often try to mess with you by creating random constructions, or leafless trees, or other such references to Herobrine, unfortunately, that's just them referencing the popular urban legend. Herobrine is not real. He never was. He never will be. Wake up! And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.